What does it mean to be human? If you look at it purely from a biological standpoint, a human is a species within the animal kingdom. We share common characteristics with other animals, but there's something about our specific genetic makeup, physiology, and brain structure that distinguishes us from other animals. But just having opposable thumbs hardly gets you over the threshold of what most of us consider to be human. What happens in the almost certain eventuality when our world advances to the point where instead of just replacing an arm or a leg with technology, we can replace, alter, and enhance entire organs and systems of our bodies? Being human goes beyond just the surface. Some may say to be human is to have self-awareness, to be conscious of one's existence and ponder the nature of reality. But with complex AI creeping ever closer, maybe we have to make our definition more concrete. Being human also involves experiencing emotions, and not just to feel a catalog of emotions for ourselves, but to have the capacity to empathize with the emotions of others. Empathy, and with it the ability to form complex social bonds, are fundamental aspects of humanity. Friendship, family, community, altruism, love. Just as those bonds are built by our ability to be kind and care for one another, they can just as easily be broken by our neglect and selfishness. With the ability to love also comes the ability to hate. And it's this dance between the two under the music of life where we evaluate our humanity, what it means to be human, and the dire consequences of losing your humanity. The cyberpunk genre is a speculative fiction genre, characterized by a futuristic dystopian setting, where advanced technology and cybernetics juxtapose with societal decay and corporate dominance. It often features morally ambiguous protagonists, who navigate a high-tech, low-life world filled with cyber enhancements, hacking, and a dark, gritty atmosphere. Cyberpunk explores themes of the human-machine interface unlike many other pieces of science fiction. It's not so much an ambitious take on what limitless possibilities a far-fetched future might have in store, but more so a materialized visceral reflection of what may happen if our society's bad habits spiral out of control. Because whether you want to admit it or not, we do live in a world of great technological advancement. But that comes with the caveat of technological dependence, loss of personal privacy, immense corporate power, classism, and the list goes on. The genre allows us to delve into questions about identity, alienation, and the impact of advanced technology on the human mind. The risks we run when living in a life engulfed in technology. The organic body gets pushed to the brink and teeters on the edge. That's where Edgerunners comes in. Utilizing the cyberpunk world, it evaluates themes of friendship, dreams, love, and most importantly, humanity. Cyberpunk Edgerunners was announced in June of 2020. It was met with rampant skepticism from disgruntled customers of the video game it was based off. Rightfully so, for obvious reasons. Before the anime even got a chance, it had the cards stacked against it. The only glimmer of hope it gave fans was the involvement of Studio Trigger, who had made quite a name for themselves over the past decade in the anime scene. But when it did finally drop on Netflix in September of 2022, fans were taken aback. The anime subverted all preconceived notions, and despite its audience bracing for a train wreck, the only thing that got smashed was their expectations, as the show became a smash hit. And not just among Cyberpunk 2077 fans, but the anime and TV community alike. With its immersive world, stellar visuals, colorful characters, precious moments, and who could forget, its bittersweet melodies. It left fans devastated, but devastated in the best way possible. We witnessed the tale of David Martinez, a bright young man who carries the dreams of his selfless mother on his shoulders to reach the top of the corporate ladder, to lead both him and his sweet mother out of poverty to a better life. But David and his mother Gloria had the incredible misfortune of living in a place like Night City. And Night City doesn't take kindly to people who have hopes and dreams. In the midst of the routine chaos and anarchy that festers in Night City, David's beloved mother adds her name to the ever-growing list of collateral casualties. And in the turn of a hat, the helpless David is left stranded and alone, with only his mother's jacket and ashes to remember her by. That's just some routine preamble. You all should know the rest. This video isn't a review, it's an essay. I can't think of a more ironic name for a place designed to crush your dreams than Night City. An ever-popular theme among the lower class is the aspect that even when you have nothing, you still have your hopes and dreams. And that's no different for our array of characters in Edgerunners, each with their own unique dream they believe will lead them to a life of fulfillment and happiness in this city. Gloria Martinez had a dream for her son to make it out of the slums and make a name for himself in the heights of the corporate world. Maine, on the other hand, wanted to make it big in the underworld. And Lucy, well, all she wants is to get away from the trenches of Night City, as far as she can, as far as the moon that is. David, on the contrary, doesn't have the usual desire to achieve or aspire for anything himself. He's a young man with no direction, easily distracted, looking for any small moments of excitement in his dull life. He's got no friends, he's constantly bullied, and he just doesn't fit in. Not the most uncommon experience for a young man. Necessary almost. But the full impact of his isolation becomes most apparent when he loses the only person he had in his life, his mother. Dreams are a major theme in Cyberpunk Edgerunners, mentioned frequently throughout the show as major plot points, tools for character motivation, and most importantly, bringing characters together. David and Lucy talk about dreams on their first encounter. Serenaded in her neon-embossed apartment, Lucy and David open up to each other for the first time. We see Lucy doesn't agree with David's stance of not having a dream of his own, but David doesn't see anything wrong with that. It's an important moment of foreshadowing. As David gets closer to Lucy and eventually others, this statute of David's, of colluding in others' dreams, becomes a necessary motivator in his life. He symbolizes this through his collection of memoirs. His mother's EMT jacket and her ashes, Maine's cyberware, lasting as a conduit for their dreams even after their death. We see in both those cases David ends up fulfilling their dreams, but with a crude twist of fate. He does make it to the top of Arasaka Tower, but not in the manner his mother would have liked. He does become the big shot edgerunner of Night City that Maine always wanted, but had to sacrifice his life in a legendary death, as is the prerequisite for cyberpunks to hail such a title. With the case of Lucy though, it's a little different. The memorabilia David has to signify he carries a part of Lucy with him is Lucy herself. You can say he has her heart. Aww. Night City's perverse torment of its residents' dreams doesn't make exceptions for anyone, even the so-called main character and his love interest. Because Lucy's dream of going to the moon does come true, and in a subverted sense, David comes along too. But I don't think Lucy's dream really was to get to the moon. Well, it was prior to meeting David, but as soon as her heart latches onto him, her dream shifts to being with him. And at all costs, she's devoted to this resolve. She strives incredibly hard to shield him from the eyes of Arasaka. As noble as her cause is, Night City can't make exceptions. The city she loathed rips her dream from her, and in a twisted sense of humor sends her to the place David and Lucy had their kismet first moment, rubbing salt in her wounds with the reflections of the wide-eyed David she fell for, proving again that regardless of the gambling of individuals, the house that is Night City always wins. And to us as an audience, it's heartbreaking to see this cycle of hopelessness. But in all honesty, as the cyberpunk genre continues to do so brilliantly, it's another reflection of the reality we all inhabit. Sometimes dreams don't come true. Hey, what can you do? It's naive and utopian to think that the world's perfect. If everyone's dreams come true, well, then we'd be living in a fairy tale. But as Lucy says, you're better off dying chasing your own dream than someone else's. Cyberpunks, edgerunners, netrunners, chooms, whatever you want to call them.
It doesn't matter what your name is!
In a nutshell, are just crazy, helpless dreamers, living life on the edge, destined to fall into the abyss sooner or later. Even though it's not specifically mentioned in the show, a dream David might not know he even has is to rid himself of this loneliness, to have people in his life who care for him and who he can care for. So if there's ever going to be a small victory we can carve out among the fallen wood, we can be glad that David got to live his dream, however short it was for. Quoting Mike Pondsmith, the author of the Cyberpunk series which the game and subsequent anime are adapted from. Cyberpsychosis is a mental illness, specifically a dissociative disorder, caused by an overload of cybernetic augmentations to the body, aka cyberware. Cyberpsychosis is a disorder that in part depends on the subject's overall internal susceptibility. Just like every person who drinks a lot at parties doesn't end up an alcoholic in the gutter, not everyone who gets loaded up on cyberware is going to automatically go cyberpsycho. You must have an inherent susceptibility, which is represented by the player's humanity stat in the video game. Humanity is not just a measure of one aspect of personality. but an overall measure of several elements, including the subject's ability to empathize and relate with others, their ability to absorb and rebound from mental and physical stressors, their ability to show compassion and flexibility to others, and whether they are able to balance their worldview through other methods. In the anime, there are 3 notable cases of cyberpsychosis: Lieutenant Colonel James Norris, Maine, and of course, Mr. Martinez himself. Our show opens with an already chromed out James Norris, poised to incite bedlam, his eyes warping around his face to give us a little foreshadowing on the visual cues of a cyber psycho. An interesting thing to note in the case of Norris is that unlike the other cases, he seems abnormally collected. Ironically, he seems very robotic, calculated, sharp, which differs wildly from what we see with David and Maine. This takes us back to how Mike Pondsmith defined cyberpsychosis. If you imagine an arbitrary scale of humanity, with Adam Smasher having absolute 0 and David having the lion's share, you can fit Norris somewhere on the side of Adam, and Maine close to the side of David. Of course, the only way to be what's known as a high-functioning cyberpsycho is to not have any humanity at all, basically to be a psychopath already. With Adam coming from a troubled childhood that eventually led him into the life of a heartless mercenary, the violation of innocence is directly related to inhumane behavior, whether that's inflicted upon the innocent, i.e. when they are a child, or injustice towards the innocent, primarily women and children when in times of war. Real-life serial killers and psychopaths tend to have similar triggers in common throughout their upbringing, many of which are induced through their own parents. Mainly due to rampant abuse and neglect, they've grown up being a regular audience to violence. Norris, like Adam, is also military, working a career that celebrates those with the ability to suppress their humanity. Not to the level of Adam clearly, but enough that when he is overcome by cyberpsychosis, his tactile and trained demeanor can still be seen. And Maine might have painted a similar picture, if not for the compassion he shows for his girlfriend, his crew, and most importantly, David, resulting in a far more treacherous form of psychosis with sporadic actions, hallucinations, and incoherence. The unyielding struggle between humanity and psychosis rages on, an unforgiving clash of forces. In the unfathomable depths of one's soul, a fierce battle unfolds. As the sinister allure of cyberware consumes, there arises a malevolent darkness that brooks no compromise with the spark of humanity. It's a perilous gamble, an insatiable greed for power that transforms flesh into cold chrome. As this unholy fusion advances, the sentinels of humanity mount their defense. But the relentless march of techno-obsession threatens to swallow even the last vestiges of the soul. There, in the shadowy realm of choices, humanity's final stand too succumbs to the abyss. What actually makes David so special is his insurmountable humanity, the strength of his soul, and its mastery of its sword named humanity. His unconditional compassion towards people is unique among the cesspool of Night City. The care and protection he exhibits for Lucy, Maine, and the rest of the gang are prime examples of this, going as far as putting his life on the line multiple times. This selflessness is what allows him the ability to don military-grade cyberware like the Sandevistan, that would flatline any regular gonk, with little to no consequence. But this confused definition of special gets to David's head. Thinking it claims him to immunity from cyberpsychosis, the stark contrast in humanity between him and Adam Smasher are blind to him. And so is the losing battle his soul is fighting as he parades around replacing his entire body with cold, lifeless steel. Allow me to analyze something for a moment. What essentially is an implant? When you break it down, it's a foreign item attached to oneself to enhance one's abilities, whether that's a bullet-timed spine, cannon blaster arm, or elongated fingers. Ugh. In taking that definition, I want to put forward the notion that dreams fall under the category of implant. Not only does David chrome up along his journey, but also continuously installs other people's dreams to his psyche, to essentially give his life purpose. We can take dreams to be software as opposed to hardware. And we do know more software has the same effect as hardware in accelerating psychosis. We see this when David equips the cyberskeleton. So when David does continue his pursuit of trying to fulfill all these people's dreams but his own, he gets overloaded, confirming the warning given by Lucy on the dangers of living for other people's dreams. This toxic charade of being special doesn't last long. It all comes crumbling down when David begins to exhibit symptoms of psychosis. His humanity stat was on the fritz from the start, not only losing his mother, but losing a surrogate father figure in Maine. And when you lose someone close to you, It's like losing a part of yourself. In response to Maine's death, the boy who couldn't stop shaking when handling a gun is now gunning down people with ease. Then there's the social side effects. He starts distancing himself from his crew and even Lucy, to identify more with machines than people. Then began the vivid hallucinations, imagining people as distorted machinery, which ultimately leads him to commit the most inhumane act of all, killing the innocent. For me, this is the moment when Night City claims its victory. David's just become another cog in its machine, allowing for the cycle of innocent suffering to continue.
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Hope everyone enjoyed the video. Have you seen Cyberpunk Edgerunners? If so, what did you think of it? What interpretations did you pull from it? Similar to me? Completely different? Whatever they may be, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. This show really left my mind and tears running. Be a dear for me, make sure to like, subscribe, and as always, appreciate you watching.